problems with Trump's character and his temperament and his attitude towards democracy have been well documented by people who are far more articulate than I am. So tonight I want to take a different approach and defend him and Mike Pence and talk a little bit about some of the reasons why the accusations of homophobia against him and against Mike Pence are mostly baseless, and speculate a little bit at the end about why it is that the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States keep getting confronted with a very serious accusation that is just not fair and is just not true. I want to start with some really positive things about Trump before I discuss the complaints about him. I want to make an affirmative case for Trump, then I want to respond to the negative cases, and then I want to talk a lot about Mike Pence because he has been the target of a lot of ire by members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community, as well as just Democrats who want to paint him in a certain light. And in that case, I'm really going to focus not on why he's pro-gay, but really why he's not the homophobe that they make him out to be. So, talking about the Trump campaign and the Trump administration, just to put it bluntly, gays and lesbians were the one group that during the election Trump did not scapegoat in any way. And that's a little weird because historically we've been really easy to scapegoat. We're sort of easy pickings for a nation that has been skeptical about the gay experience, and yet I could go through them. Every other groups, at some point, his campaign or Trump personally attacked, belittled, scapegoated, and we weren't on that list. Maybe it's a strange honor, but it's true. In his acceptance speech, he said, "I will do everything in my power to protect our LGBT citizens," referring to the attack on the Orlando Gay nightclub 6 weeks earlier. There's that famous picture of him beaming while holding a rainbow flag that says LGBTs for Trump. This is not the behavior of a homophobic politician. His appointees, some of them have been more problematic, but a lot of them have been terrific. So Rex Tillerson was known to have been instrumental in changing the Boy Scouts' exclusionary policies when he was the president of that organization. Obviously, openly gay businessman Peter Thiel spoke at the RNC. He was on the transition team. He's an important voice in the Trump circles. This is a big deal. Trump retained Randy Berry, who was the diplomat whose mission was to protect gay people from persecution abroad. It was a position created by Obama. It was a man appointed by Obama. And Trump kept both the office and the diplomat in place. If you think Ted Cruz would have done that, you don't understand Ted Cruz, you don't understand Republican politics. Further, Nikki Haley has been outspoken on the situation of gays in Chechnya. Again, that's just not going to happen from a UN ambassador, from a president who is hostile towards the lesbian and gay community. In terms of policy, Trump has done some things that are admirable. He retained Obama's rules, barring companies from who are doing federal work from discriminating against gay people. And on the issue that has most torn the country in the gay area, which is gay marriage, he has been very clear that he's not interested in rolling back that institution. He sees it as settled law, not a contested issue, so he's moved on. Most importantly, though, and I've actually talked to Gregory about this a little bit, is evangelical Christians have been the primary thorn in the side of the gay and lesbian community for decades. They have been sponsoring legislation and pushing candidates and promoting rhetoric that have belittled and attacked and stymied on everything from gay rights to education to certainly the HIV and AIDS epidemic. And Trump has muted them in so many ways. That is a very big deal, particularly since 80% of white evangelicals voted for Trump, and only 14% of the lesbian and gay community voted for Trump, and I think they're all in this room. Right? So you know, he has every incentive to just go with the flow and to pick the side that picks him. And this is a man who likes praise, right? But he's got some instincts and he's got some people around him that say, no, I'm not going to go there. And again, you think about what a President Rubio might have done in terms of dealing with evangelicals hat in hand, right? And what you might have seen certainly from Ted Cruz rallying the evangelicals to go further than they would have gone. And here we have somebody who has really dampened down the voices of these enemies, traditional enemies of the gay and lesbian community. That in and of itself has been great news for the gay community. Let's talk about some of the unfair accusations that we hear from what I call big gay. I think you know who I'm talking about. Okay, so right after he was elected, Lambda Legal sent out a blast to its people saying, the year ahead will be brutal for gay people, send us $100. So, brutal, right? I mean, do they know what that word means in terms of the experiences of other people in this country, in terms of the experiences of gay people in other lands? It's a ridiculous thing to say, and it hasn't come true either. I have real concerns about what's happened in this country over the last year and what's going to happen in future years, but brutality towards gay people is just not on the list. One of the ones, I'll start with perhaps a silly one. You heard members of the gay community, that the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force sent out a press release or a fundraiser that said, we're being erased. Why? Because the census is not going to ask, are you gay? Okay, first of all, the census never was going to ask, are you gay? It was a proposal discussed by the Obama administration. It was never approved, and it just wasn't carried forth on the Trump, by the Trump census people. But it makes sense. First of all, being erased. Do you know who is not counted by the census? Jews are not counted by the census, right? Are we erased? Right? Are we fully American like everybody else? Then also, I guess on some symbolic level, it's important to count. But think about what this means. It's illegal, it's federally illegal to lie to a census taker. So, come in. Are you gay? Right? Is that something that would make sense for people like us? And thinking back to our own experiences, to have somebody ask us, somebody representing the government, if we don't fill out the form and they come to our door to ask us if we're gay or if we're transgender, and that's something that's deep inside of us that we have to make a decision right on the spot under penalty of law. Ooh. Another thing that really concerns me, and this one is more serious, is the EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, decided a few years ago, mostly because of a lesbian on the commission, that the 1964 Civil Rights Law would cover sexual orientation, even though it doesn't say that. And that's a big problem. The Obama administration supported it. The Trump administration went to court disagreeing. The courts have been split so far. But to me, the problem with it isn't about sexual orientation. I'm okay as long as there's religious protections with laws barring discrimination against gay people. I like such laws. But you have to do it legislatively. You can't have executive agencies going out on their own deciding that a law that at the time it was debated, sexual orientation was not discussed. And since then, laws banning discrimination against gay people were proposed in every Congress and voted on a few times, and every time it went down. And then to overturn that by an executive agency is not fair, and it's dangerous, especially in a Trump administration. Because I believe that a president with his attitude towards the Constitution and the laws, if given the chance, if he had the right to say, oh, this law that says X, it really says X plus Y, and then his executive officials say, yeah, that's what it says, and then the judges that he appoints say, yeah, that's said, suddenly we don't have rule of law in this country. We don't have a legislative way to decide how we rule ourselves. But for Big Gay, it's the result that matters. And they don't have their eye on the big picture, and they want to win. Really don't like them. I'm not going to spend much time talking about religious freedom and the Baker case, although I feel very strongly that people should have the right to refuse to make creative products to refuse to make creative products that celebrate gay marriage or any other institution that they don't agree upon. There's a lot of issues there. People have misstated what the case is about, but to me the most important is political. If the Bakers win at the Supreme Court, which is the position of the Trump administration, if the Bakers win, suddenly gay rights laws become much easier to pass because the argument on the other side is completely defanged. Their best weapon is to say, oh, but it's going to hurt religious freedom. If they can't say that anymore, suddenly all the arguments against gay rights laws start to sound mean. So I just want to point out a few things about the transgender topic. There was an op-ed 3 days ago in the New York Times that listed 4 issues on transgender and said that Trump was a bigot, and used different versions of that word several times. 4 issues were: 1, they reversed a policy reaching out to LGBT homeless people. 2, they no longer field inquiries related to bullying in public schools on LGBT bathroom issues. 3, related, they overturned the policy, the Obama policy, that said that all schools must allow students to choose the bathroom and locker room that matches their internal identity. And finally, most famously, particularly recently, transgenders can't serve in the military. Okay, bigotry. What the article failed to mention is that on all 4 issues, the Trump administration has precisely the same position that the Obama administration had for the first 7.5 years of that administration. But who was calling Obama a bigot? Certainly not the writer of this op-ed. I do want to respond to a couple of those issues that I mentioned. On transgender bathrooms, it's a tiny, tiny change. The Obama administration said schools can't decide. They must have a policy letting students choose. Trump said schools can decide on their own. Well, I worked in a high school. The fact is, once you make a change, it usually doesn't change back. So we're talking about a very small number of schools, and all that happened is they get to decide, based on their own school, their local issues, how to handle the problem. And the other thing is, I'm sorry, I think it's wrong to tell people which bathroom to use. There's no privacy about a trans woman going in and using a stall in a woman's bathroom. They don't have urinals in there, sorry. But locker rooms are different. I think it's legitimate for a parent to say, I don't want my daughter seeing any penises while she's 11. So that's a different issue. And finally, on the military issue, I disagree. I think trans people should be allowed to serve in the military, but it's not a major issue facing the country. There are fewer than 10,000, as few as 3,000 trans service members, and the policy, while I think it's misguided, is not necessarily homophobic. I'll give you 4 examples of why one might support either banning or slowing the integration of trans people into the military that one could make that are not homophobic reasons. For example, it is statistically true that when a man has surgery and or hormone therapy to become a woman, he is less strong. So it's reasonable for somebody to say, we don't want people voluntarily being worse soldiers. 2, there are issues with uniforms and housing that are organized in the military based on gender. That might take some time to solve. 3, our military goes into foreign countries that are not as enlightened, as forward-thinking, whatever you want to call it, as we are on the issue of gender identity. And some of these allies are really important for the United States in terms of our global future. And I'm sorry, more important than 5,000 people feeling affirmed by the nation by being able to serve in the military. And finally, people throughout American history have joined the military. Some of them have joined the military for the benefits. So do we really want people, and it will happen, if we're offering gender transition surgery, which can be expensive, for free if you're in the military, they're going to people to join to do that. Maybe it's not a reason to ban it, I don't think it is, but it's not a homophobic reason. And that's my point. If banning transgender people from the military is the most homophobic thing that Trump has done, wow, we're doing very well. Okay, Mike Pence. HRC leader Chad Griffin called Mike Pence the #1 face of hate in the country. Now, whether he's homophobic really depends on the meaning of homophobic. If it means that he has a variety of positions that traditionally disagree with the gay and lesbian community, okay. If it means that he has malice, I don't believe it. But he's not the #1 face of hate in the country. It's just not true. Even hate against gay people in the country, it's just not reasonable. And the main reason that people say he's a hater is because they say he supports conversion therapy. Now, before I start, I want to be clear that I reject conversion therapy. I condemn it, and if you Google it, you'll see I've been condemning it in print since August of 2008. It doesn't work, it hurts people, it's wrong. But they've tried so hard to show that he supports it, and they have nothing. This is the most they have. In 2000, 18 years ago, on his website for his campaign, there was the following 2 sentences. Congress should support the reauthorization of the Ryan White Care Act only after completion of an audit to ensure that federal dollars were no longer being given to organizations that celebrate and encourage the types of behaviors that facilitate the spreading of the HIV virus. Resources should be directed toward those institutions which provide assistance to those seeking to change their sexual behavior. Okay, 6 points. 1, we don't know that he wrote it. We don't know that he approved it. Any of you who worked on a campaign know that pointing to a website and saying, look at what the candidate said is not how campaigns work. 2, the literal reading of that text could be something that a liberal gay organization could have said. Resources should be directed towards those institutions which provide assistance to those seeking to change their sexual behavior. It's called safe sex. And as a matter of fact, Pence's office has said that it refers to safe sex. Now, you might not believe him, but don't say that this is conversion therapy, because it doesn't say that it is. 3rd, it was 18 years ago, right? I could tell you that Obama spoke out in very disturbing tones against gay marriage 8 years ago. So how long are we going to keep holding grudges? 4, we know more about conversion therapy now than we did 18 years ago. We've heard more testimony from people who've gone through it. There's more scientific data. So to hold him, even if it was about conversion therapy, it's 18 years ago. Get over it. Number 5, why would AIDS dollars go to conversion therapy? It just doesn't make sense. It's not like it's a platform of people on the right. Why would he be the only candidate? A lot of people say that $8 should go to safe sex. Who besides him is saying that? I've never heard it before. And finally, changing behavior is not the goal of conversion therapy. The conversion therapy exists to make gay people straight. That's why it's conversion. A man who abstains for sex for 5 years and is in conversion therapy, and then says, I'm still gay, I'm not going to have sex, he is a failure to the conversion therapy people. And yet, change their behavior, and that means that he has said something on conversion therapy? So, Pence's people have denied on 3 occasions, including a tweet from Pence himself, calling it an 18-year-old non-story that he called hashtag fake news. Also has denied it, but they keep throwing it up again. You watch these newspaper articles and they say, well, yes, he says he didn't do it, but gay groups say they think he did. Well, that's not how journalism works. You can't say what somebody says or believes based on what people think he says or believes. There doesn't have to be 2 sides to every story. And as a matter of fact, newspapers are going more in the direction of saying something's a lie under the Trump administration. So why don't they call this out? So 2 weeks ago, in his hometown paper, the Indiana Star, there was a paragraph that I'm going to read you. But Pence, who previously has suggested homosexuality as a choice, declined to say whether or not he believes conversion therapy has merit. So Dennis Prager says that whenever a conservative is said to have suggested something, it means he didn't say it. Because if he said it, they would say he said it. And then this thing about, he won't say if he believes he has merit. Well, he says he doesn't support it. Well, do you believe it has merit? They're changing the goalposts, and I consider it a kind of McCarthyism. This whole failure to condemn, which is very big these days. Trump, will you condemn David Duke? And do you condemn? This happens on the left, too. People go to any black leader and say, will you condemn Louis Farrakhan? And I'm sorry, the experience of being black is not enough to have to condemn somebody else who's black who says something bad. I don't accept failure to condemn. Okay, so then also that article says that he called being gay a choice. No. Here's the quote that he gave. This debate today is not about discrimination. I believe that if somebody chooses another lifestyle than I have chosen, that is their right in a free society. So lifestyle could mean one of these silly things like, oh, a lesbian wakes up in the morning and she browses the sexuality catalog and she's like, oh, I want that one. I'll be a lesbian. That's a silly idea, and there are some people who seem to believe that. Could mean that he's like that, or he could just mean like lifestyle. The dictionary says habits, attitudes, tastes, moral standards, economic level. That could be what he meant. But one way you know he almost certainly wasn't saying being gay is a choice is he said, another lifestyle than I have chosen. So if he's saying that gay people choose to be gay, he's saying that he chose to be straight. Now, I always hear gay people saying, did you choose to be straight? As if it's obvious that nobody does. Why would he say this if he believed that? So my point is, people are looking to make him look homophobic, and saying it's a choice is one way to do it, but he never did, and they claim that he did. But you know what? On one gay-related issue, Mike Pence is a hero. I want to tell you about that. Mike Pence is a conservative evangelical who was the governor of Indiana, who, like almost all conservative Indiana politicians, was against needle exchange. Well, there was a crisis in one county in Indiana, and people were dying, and his public health people came to him and said, we need needle exchange, it will change lives, it will save lives, and he changed his position. Now, that's heroic in any politician, but it's especially heroic in a politician who's speaking back to the evangelical community that thinks that's a terrible thing to do. Amen. That's the kind of vice president, someday the kind of president I want on gay issues and on anything that listens and is willing to change his mind when he thinks that it's best for the country. So, Why won't this stop? Why do they keep saying, despite the evidence to the contrary, that Trump and Pence are so homophobic?
They can't raise money otherwise.
Okay, there you go. Adam Rippon, the figure skater, recently they asked him, you know, will you meet with Mike Pence? And he said, you mean Mike Pence, the same Mike Pence that funded gay conversion therapy? There's no evidence that he funded it. Nobody ever said in any news article, well, he did fund. The lies about Mike Pence are that he supported it because of his website, but that he funded it, and yet the articles about it treat it as, well, he says he did, they said he didn't. This is not a two sides to every issue. Yeah, so I was at a Jewish conference in United Kingdom, conference called Limud, and there was a representative named Matthew Shirka who works with an organization that goes around the country passing laws that ban conversion therapy. Again, I'm against conversion therapy. But he starts his talk with, for example, Mike Pence has spoken out many times in favor of conversion therapy. And I said, he's never spoken out. Oh, yes, he has. So I showed him and I emailed him afterwards. The same guy, by the way, said, Nikki Haley refused to sign a petition condemning the situation of gays in Chechnya. So I did a little Googling, headline, Nikki Haley condemns situation of gays in Chechnya. And he said, yes, but she didn't sign the petition. Right? They keep moving they keep moving the goalpost because it's important to them.
There's no money.
Right, it's important for them, for Republicans in general, and for the president and the vice president, to be homophobic. They really, really, really want to keep up this lie that Matthew and his organization continue. I've been Googling it to say that Pence supports conversion therapy. So why do people keep saying that they're homophobic? I've thought of 4 answers. I'm very interested in your ideas. I guess they're just trying to raise money. I'll take that. We'll call it number 5. My number 1 is that it's just lazy thinking. They have this old template. Oh, Republicans, bad. Democrats, good. Particularly on gay issues, and they don't look and see if things are different. By the way, of these, that's the one I respect the most, right? Pay attention. Okay. Second, Obama and before him Clinton changed the terms of the conversation. Such that no matter how progressive, no matter how helpful and good a Republican politician might be, they look anti-gay if you're not paying close enough attention. Third, they want to keep gays on the plantation. They want people like us who want smaller government and more freedom, who happen to be gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, to vote against our interests on issues of freedom and issues of size of government, because, oh no, they hate gay people. Well, that can't happen when you have presidents that don't hate gay people, so they need to convince you and all of the gay people in the wider community that these are virulently anti-gay people. Number 4, which is going to be pretty much the last thing I want to share with you, is sort of an unusual way of looking at it. But I believe that some of what's going on when the media and the Democrats and the left say that Pence is a supporter of conversion therapy is really about abortion. And that's because people on the left are understanding that the nation has moved at least a little bit rightward on abortion, that about half the Americans that pick a label pick pro-life instead of pro-choice, that the big chunk of the middle, people who want some restrictions, gets more responses yes on surveys than those who want no restrictions or all restrictions. And so if he were to attack Pence as a raging conservative Christian hater on abortion, they'd turn too many people off. And they can't attack him on gay marriage because nobody's debating gay marriage anymore. So they picked conversion therapy because it makes him look stupid and it makes him look mean, and they won't let go of it. But what they really care about is the Supreme Court, is the kinds of decisions that a president can make regarding abortion. They think he's smarter than Trump, he's more savvy than Trump, and they're really afraid of him being president because that will mean, what that will mean for that issue. And they're using gay issues as a mask for that. So I want to conclude by telling you, reminding you that in 2020, I am not voting for President Trump. I hope you won't vote for President Trump. But I do hope for someday that I'll get to vote for President Pence. That would make me happy.
I'm voting for Trump.
Thanks for having me.
So if you have any questions or you have any remarks,
That's dangerous.
what's interesting to me is if you look at a lot of the exit polls, and you could go to CNN, New York Times, whatever, Trump amazingly improved with African Americans, Hispanics, Asians compared to Romney. Gays were like, I think the only, if one, maybe a couple groups where actually he did worse than Romney did, and that's despite the fact that Romney ran on the federal marriage amendment. I think even making restrictions on gay, he was way more anti-gay in his positions on issues than Trump.
First of all, I am going to vote for President Trump for re-election. I was interested in your analysis that, you know, I thought you did a good job in saying that all these assumptions, when you look at the facts, don't really stand up to facts. And I'm wondering why it is so hard for you to apply the same analysis to other areas. Just off the top of my head, this may not be the best one, but you know, Trump has a lot of criticism about immigration policies, tariffs, he's backward thinking, he's racist. Maybe he's just trying to help the forgotten American worker and protect American manufacturing jobs, protect the jobs of the people he promised to do during the campaign, and it seems to be working. So why can't you apply the same analysis that, you know, we have all these assumptions that Trump is a hater, he hates immigrants, he's, you know, he wants to protect long-gone industries, and rather take a positive view that he's really trying to do something positive for a change for the first time in 2 generations.
I think I do that more than you think I do. Tonight I'm just defending him on gay issues. I went on CNN to say that the man is not an anti-Semite, for example. So I defend Trump when he deserves defending. I've written probably 100 columns for the Daily Caller since his campaign began about the national politics, about his situation, and many of them are anti-Trump. My position on Trump is not about issues. It's about his temperament. He's a man who will call the president of North Korea fat, the dictator of North Korea fat. I think that's very dangerous. I don't like his attitude towards the Constitution. I don't like his putting his ego in front of everything. I don't like his pussyfooting, dancing around, maybe getting along with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi sometimes, and then he backs away. I don't like where he is on free trade, so there are some issues. But the biggest thing, although that is important, because I don't believe he's conservative on the inside. I think he's pro-Trump on the inside. And that's not what I'm looking for. So I do what you're saying I should do. My concerns are not, his position on Muslims. That really is not what motivates me to oppose him. It's really personality, character, temperance.
Yeah, one last question.
Sure,
for you.
sure.
Is there advice that you would give everyone? You've actually armed us with a lot of, I think there was a lot of people in this room that knew a lot of the points that you brought up. However, I think you armed us with 50% more facts to when we're discussing it with other members in the LGBT community about how they're wrong on these issues, or at least we have the facts to come back to with them. But is there any other advice? Because as we've probably a lot of us here have encountered, they don't listen, and you know they're tone deaf to it. And you could throw every fact in their face, and they're not going to say, they're not going to change their mind.
Right.
Is there any advice you would have to our group into changing their minds?
Sure.
Besides obviously stating the facts,
Sure.
which is obviously not winning in a lot of cases.
You know, when I was first figuring out what would I like to talk about, I was afraid that you guys already knew all these things that I wanted to say.
You expanded a lot more.
All right, well I appreciate that, and I'm glad I was able to. To me, having dealt with gay people in politics and journalism since 1990, you know, I'm pretty much at the point of you're not going to change their minds, but if you have a better argument, there are a lot of people listening who are in the middle or who don't know. Also, you can change the minds of people 10 years from now. You plant a seed. It happened with me. I was a Democrat. I was on the left. And I would hear things, and I would fight it, and I would reject it, but I would hear it. You can't argue against something if, with any credibility if you don't hear it. And it would come down here, and it would sit there, and there'd be a little voice in my head, you know. And so I don't consider reasonably conducted debates in which most people in the room think you lost. I don't consider that a waste of time at all, especially when there are people who don't really know that are listening.
Well, that's us at every Pride parade.
All right.
We might change one person at any time we set up a table at a Pride parade, but
And they come and they're mad at you.
actually, I will say when we set up a table at the Pride Festival, 99% of the people that come by will say that we're glad you're here, even if we don't agree with you.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
That's nice. I think we have a case to make to everybody that what you think about the Republican Party, and when you use the Republican Party's homophobia to fight what we do, you're not telling the truth. Just move ahead, tell the truth, have strong arguments, and people are going to follow along.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.